R.I.P. Chelsea lately. Give me the backstory. Give me the story. Give me your opinions. Give me everything.
They went
Did she make the right move?
In my opinion?
Yeah. Hi there, folks out there in TV land. Today I have the pleasure of introducing one of my very close friends, Heather McDonald. She is probably the best thing to come out of the Valley. And that is, I mean that with all sincerity.
That is really nice. I am 818 till I die. I'm a proud Valley person.
But if you had the option of 310, you probably would ditch the 818.
Of course.
Right? Of course you
yes.
would. Fuck it. I'm not going to give her intro. I'm going to let you do it because who better to talk about herself than herself?
Myself.
So why don't you just tell us about yourself?
Well, thank you, Josh. Yes, should I just talk to this camera? Yes, I was born a newborn, came out of my mom's vagina at the Burbank Hospital.
How was that for her?
Which is now Providence Hospital, St. Joseph's. It was great.
Sounds like a nice Jewish hospital.
Yes, I was the fifth one. No, but most people know me from either stand-up comedy. I have a couple stand-up specials on Amazon Prime available now, and my podcast Juicy Scoop. But mostly, I really got to be best known when I was writing, producing, and appearing on Chelsea Lately for 7 years on E. So now let's go.
After exiting your mother's vagina,
yes.
What was the next step in getting you to be who you are today? Like, where was what was your break in Hollywood?
Well,
your big break on the silver screen.
There were many things that were meant to be breaks that weren't. The first was our next door neighbors. They had this family visit them, and those kids had an agent, and her name was Iris Burton. And for you being a fan of like old Hollywood,
anyone whose name is Iris is going to be glamorous.
Well, she was just this. She was the one and only children's agent, and dominated that world from like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Just amazing. And
so were you in that like Kim Richards, Kyle Richards clique? Like,
I mean, I think that was the hope, except that only my blonde sister got work. At that time, they really wanted blonde, blue-eyed people, and she was always like, you know what? Do you know any good twins? I need identical twins, because like a child's agent always wants twins because they can work twice as much. So for any sitcom or anything, they always need twins. So yeah, that didn't really work out. And then I went to USC, but I didn't pursue acting or drama at SC. I just got a regular communications business degree. About a year after that is when I started doing stand-up in the Groundlings Theater, which is an improv troupe. So I was in this awful job at Robinson's May as a buyer, and my friends threw down a Learning Annex magazine, which was this magazine that you could go find classes on like how to be a screenwriter, whatever. And there was one class. I got up and I did a little bit, and I made all the strangers laugh, and I left the parking lot, and I was like, all right, I'm going to be a stand-up comic. So you didn't know you would be a stand-up comic your whole life? Like, I feel like some people just like, you didn't take a class and like figure out, I'm going to be funny. Like, you either are or you're not funny. No,
like,
I knew I kind of wanted to.
And people always tell you,
it.
you're fucking hilarious.
Like my parents, yes.
Hey, ladies, when your neighbor is doing you from behind and your other neighbor walks into the foyer and you realize you forgot to return that casserole dish? Awkward, am I right, ladies?
What would you consider your big break, though? Like, the thing that, like, made you, like, a known name? Like, everyone knows who Heather McDonald is, now at least. I think over the last 5 years, it's really gotten popular. I
mean, definitely Chelsea Lately got me to a level where I was being recognized regularly. I was able to become a headlining comedian on my own, which means I could go and headline the comedy club for the weekend and make good money for the weekend. I got 2 book deals when I was there. I got a TV deal when I was there. But once that show was off the air, it wasn't enough that people would ever recognize me from that. So then I'd get little things here or there. So then, like, throughout my early 30s and stuff, I was not being recognized or anything like that.
So you had like a moment, and then it kind of fizzled away,
totally,
and then came back again.
Yeah.
Was it? Did you know did you think that was your moment, and like, oh, it's all going to go like this from now on, and then you had a big disappointed failure?
I know one of your questions was, what do I regret? And some people say, I have no regrets. No, I have some regrets. One of the regrets is when I had that little bit of a momentum, I should have been out every single night, doing stand-up every single night, parlaying the little bit of TV craziness I had going on. Yeah, my other regret is that after that, I got a TV deal that I sold the Monday after 9/11. Okay, so 9/11 happened on a Tuesday. That Monday at 9 a.m., I had a pitch meeting.
Probably not the right timing.
No, but they bought it. So they bought it.
Wow.
They bought it, and we wrote this series. But then when you sit down to like write it with a professional writer, it just gets so like not my vision. So, but I was like, whatever. I knew I'd get a check no matter what. So they're like, you're not going to star in it. You could audition for a part in it. We really want it for Sherry O'Terry. Anyway, she passed on it, and I guess she passed on, the story is she passed on mine along with a few others. So then it was over with. But then now I'm like 30, and I was like, why didn't I was in. Like, I could have been like writing them scripts and like handing it to them. But I was like, no, I still want to be an actress. I still want to waste my time driving an hour and learning lines and never getting barely, I'd book something here or there, but not very often. And then
Wait, what are you doing for income at the time? Like, what's your job?
Real estate. I'm a real estate agent with my parents, and my husband works. And then I would occasionally get a gig here or there. Sometimes we'd have health insurance. Sometimes we'd have to go back to Kaiser. It's just like, it just was like that.
Okay.
I remember
but you were fine. You were happy with it.
I remember I was doing a home inspection on a house in Burbank that I sold. And the night before, I had a guest role on Malcolm in the Middle. And the people are coming, they're like, weren't you on Malcolm in the Middle last night? And I'm like, yes.
Gotta pay the bills.
They're like, yeah. I was like, and it was fun because then like some of my friends, my friend Alex Kapp, she got a series and she was on at the Groundlings. I sold her a house.
Do you still have a license?
The Groundlings. No, I let that go. When I
Why
was
do
at Chelsea,
people let them go? Like, it doesn't cost anything. Just keep it. Like, who cares? Like, wouldn't you at least represent yourself when you buy a house or whatever?
Because my husband is a full broker, so as long as he can do it.
Oh, you just didn't want to take that continuing education, did you?
I didn't want to take all those classes, and I did it for like the first year or two of Chelsea Lately, and then finally by like the third, I just said, you know what? I'm just confident that I'm not going to have to do this, and if I do, I should probably relearn it or take it again or whatever. I think I could. It wouldn't be that hard to pass it, to take it again. But
well, I failed 3 times.
You did?
Carbon monoxide. That was the motherfucker that got me the first time.
Okay, I'll tell you something, and I'm not afraid to say it. Come after me.
Bitch.
I got into SAG by a guy named Wayne.
You blew him?
No. It was so hard to get into SAG, and you couldn't get into SAG, Screen Actors Guild, without having, legit work. But the only way you could get legit work is to have an agent, and no agent wanted you unless you were in SAG. And it was just like a vicious cycle. It was impossible to get an agent. It was impossible in SAG. So one time I was at an acting class, and I just go, there's gotta be someone you can pay. This guy, he works at SAG-AFTRA, it wasn't AFTRA then, it was only SAG back then. His name's Wayne. You give him $300, you call him on the phone, you give him $300, and I just gave it blindly. And then he will send you 3 things that says that you worked legitimately. Like you had a couple lines on this, a couple lines on that, and you said 1 line in a Bud Light commercial or whatever. And then you needed those invoices, and then you take those invoices and you go to the SAG building, and then you give them another $1,150 just to join.
Beautiful.
So I did it. I gave the number to like 8 other people I know. And yeah, it all worked out.
What's your biggest gig before Chelsea Lately?
Probably writing and appearing in the White Chicks movie. They already had the story like kind of fleshed out. And then I came and I was helping with the characters and scenes and all that. So then I got to be there for the whole writing process. And then they're like, we're going to try to get you a part of the movie. And I'm like, oh, please do. And then they like call me and they're like, we're fighting with Canada because they have to give a certain number of parts to Canadian actors to film in Canada. And then they literally were like, okay, can you get on a plane in 3 hours? We worked it out. And so I was like, oh my God, car comes to me, go, I did the movie. And
Why did it have to literally be like 3 hours?
I just remember it was very short notice because they were like, oh, we're not going to be able to hire you. We got to hire this Canadian person. And then they like fought hard enough and they're like, no. And it was great because it was a scene that was my idea and that I wrote.
You couldn't make that movie today, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. So over the years, for the last 10 years at least, they've talked about, is there going to be a sequel? Is there going to be a sequel? You know, and the guys always had other things going on. And the main part of what was so hard is that they literally got like 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night, because, and I think they were able to do it because they were producers and stuff, so they weren't beholden to like the 10-hour workday or whatever, because they couldn't. They had to be in the chair, getting the makeup, all that stuff. That took hours and hours and hours. Then they had to do all the stuff. So it was like physically the most exhausting thing they've ever done. So every time it would kind of possibly be, they were just like, oh. But then with, you know, the transgender movement, I was like, this can't happen now. But we were parroting movies that had happened. Tootsie, Some Like It Hot.
Sure.
Even like She's the Man. There's a movie with Amanda Bynes. There were all these movies, and we would watch all these movies, and then Keena would be like, okay, there has to be a scene where they almost get caught, or one of the guys almost gets caught. One of the guys has to have a love interest, you know, like, and we were taking it all from watching these movies of what makes when a guy has to have the persona of a woman for a reason, and then of course their thing with the crime, and then the white chicks being that they were black added another really fresh, funny layer to it, which was, you know, so fun, because here I am in a room with black men for hours and hours and hours. And so in light of what we've gone through in the last year, it's kind of frustrating to me, because I'm like, you know, so diversity in a writer's room is really important if you want to have the best show. So it was just great. It was just a great experience. That was a really fun movie to work on.
Chelsea Handler.
Yes.
Okay. How did that happen? How did that end?
How it happened was I knew Chelsea from doing stand-up, and we were doing a lot of shows together at the Improv in a show called Pretty Funny Women. So then when I found out from Lisa that ran the show, she's like, oh, Chelsea's going to have a show 5 nights a week. She's going to take Howard Stern's spot on E. And she's like, but I don't want to know. I don't know if I want to work like a full-time writing job like that. And I'm like, well, I do. And so for me, I was like, oh my God, I've written for, you know, black guys. I can write for a drunk white girl. Like, blah, blah, blah. I knew her point of view, which was different than mine, but I knew like her cadence and everything. So I like wrote these jokes, and she wanted me on it, and there wasn't a lot of room to have writers, but I got chosen as one. And then it just was a hit. But you know, one of the reasons it was kind of a hit, which I don't think people really realized, is we had the advantage of there was a writer's strike and no other late night shows was on. And so people found us. I really think that really helped, like, kind of jumpstart it.
That's interesting.
And then once people got hold of it, it was just such a unique thing, and it was just like,
God bless the writer's strike.
It was such a fun. So, I mean, when you mentioned, you know, my podcast, when we first got hit with the pandemic, and everyone's just like, okay, I guess we can't work, shutting down.
Time to tune in.
Shutting down. I'm like, nope. So when people were like, how was the pandemic for you? I'm like, I went from having 2 full-time jobs to having one. One was all the stand-up, which was then canceled, which I did not mind. And I just did the podcast. And it was like, you know, good for me, because and then all these people were so grateful that, like, the show never stopped. They found the show, it continued. I just think my advice kind of is, my regret, going back to bring it full circle, is like, when you have the momentum going, keep it going.
Sure.
Don't slow it down just because you think, oh, I can, the governor told me to. And I'm not saying if you had to stop working, I understand. But I'm saying, like, you know, whatever the case might be, or you think, oh, I've got a TV show now, so I don't have to do stand-up. Or I don't need to write this book right now, I'm so busy, but the offer is here. It's like, you better know that, like, it's busy for a reason, and it won't always be busy, and you got to make the money when you can make it.
R.I.P. Chelsea Lately. Give me the backstory, give me the story, give me your opinions, give me everything.
So, you know, it was just, she just decided she didn't want to do it anymore. And it ended earlier than it was supposed to, by like 4 months or so. And that was fine, you know.
Wait, she decided to end her show?
Yeah.
Who does that?
I don't know. I mean, she had a very successful show. They wanted to continue it. They went over.
Did she make the right move?
In my opinion?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? You know, she's changed a lot. Our show, I don't know that our show could have stayed the same. I mean, for me in the end, it was the best thing that could have happened because I would have never quit. I would have stayed. I would have been too nervous to ever quit such a fun, easy. I mean, it wasn't easy as far as time consuming, but it was easy. The work was easy and the days were enjoyable. So, and I don't think I could have started a podcast and been working there because they were very strict about, they'd be strict about even if we came in and they were like, why did you write that tweet last night? Like, that's a good joke that we could have used for today. Like, don't be and I kind of see that point. Like, save your jokes for the show, you know, and then they're like, and then if it doesn't get used, then you can put it on Twitter, but your focus should be writing on the show. And I don't think that's wrong to be. I think if you've got a show, your writers have to be committed to the show. It was a little hard because we were being featured like an SNL crew, and so people started getting offered stuff and their agents were in their ears, and that was kind of annoying, I think, to her. And then
you guys didn't end well, right?
We did end well then. Maybe like a year later, I went on a podcast and they asked me what was it like working on it. And they took that podcast and they took a sentence from it and they gave it to TMZ, who then wrote a headline about it 5 days before the podcast was even available to be listened to.
Interesting.
So within those 5 days, everybody was like, fuck Heather McDonald, she's such a loser. I was like,
what was the sentence?
If I had
what was the sentence that
the sentence was Theo Vaughn goes, I felt like people were walking on eggshells or something when I was there to do the one show. And I said something to the effect of, yeah, every day I feared for my life that I'd get fired. And that is not a reflection on Chelsea. That's a reflection on me. That is the way I am a fear-based person. I'm just starting to stop being afraid at my age, but that was just me. And so then she gets a wind of that and she gets pissed off and she goes on Howard Stern and said she, you know, ripped me a new asshole.
Why the fuck would I talk to her about what I was doing? She's a writer on my show. She's not my partner.
You should absolutely not discuss that with her.
I mean, that's like you talking to Gary about what you're going to do. Do you talk to Gary about your deals?
No.
Exactly.
And said that I sold stories about her to the tabloids and everything, which is a complete and total lie. I've never made $1 off a tabloid. I don't even think they pay people more than $50, and there was no story to tell. She told it all in her books and on the show. I mean, it was a total lie. So then, but those type of rumors then get out there, and years later, even now, I'll get a tweet. You were a bad friend to Chelsea. You sold stories about her to the tabloid. So, but you know, it's very hard to repair it once it's out because it's
so
old
if you
news.
saw her in a restaurant today, how would the interaction be?
Since. I saw her at Chuy's funeral.
Okay.
It was fine.
Did she give you a hug?
It was great. Yeah, I mean, it was great. It was like everybody just acted like it was 2010.
That's nice. If it wasn't a funeral, if you went to Il Pastaio for dinner and you saw each other there,
if I saw her, I'd absolutely say hi.
Would she be like? Would she be nice? And then when you left, start talking shit about you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, probably so.
Okay. Let's just get straight to the point.
Probably so, but you know, I think but
if you went into a doctor's office and you were in the waiting room and she
Yes.
happened to be sitting there also reading a Sports Illustrated or whatever,
I'd absolutely talk to her.
And would
100%.
she be really pissed that you were talking to her?
No,
or would she engage with
I
you?
think she would be happy to have some entertainment for 10 minutes.
Yeah, she'd be like, okay, well, this is
Yes.
free entertainment.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, we had, it was some of the best times of my life. It was like truly like the rise. I was young, I enjoyed it. We went on, you know, I opened for her.
I was going to say,
But I mean, I don't want to get into like,
No,
it's all good and everybody's moved on.
Okay, so now
and she's only said flattering things now about her memories on the show. I think right after the show, towards the end of the show, it wasn't flattering. about Chelsea lately. I think she thought it was dumb, and I think she thought it was, she was like, I don't want to talk about Kardashians anymore. I don't want to. And I was like, we can change the point of view of the show. Like, I even said to the producers, I go, if Chelsea's not happy with the stuff we're talking about, I'm like, what if we went on like a retreat and we just like recreated came up with stuff, and then this one producer goes, Heather, it's over. Like, and then I was like, okay with it. I was fine with it ending. I mean, she doesn't have to do something she doesn't want to do. But looking back, there's never been a show that's been like it.
I'm so frustrated. But then she has some drinks and she falls again and she goes, maybe there is something to this town.
What are you doing between then and Juicy Scoop?
So I had a show that I did with
Are we back into real estate again?
No, I had a lot of action right after, to be honest. It was kind of good.
Okay.
My special came out on Showtime. I tested for 2 talk shows, and I got one of them, and it was on TLC. It was called All About Sex. After 6 episodes, that was it. Didn't go further. Then I did this other weird thing on TLC about moms. That didn't go any further. And then I was like, okay, I guess it's time for a podcast. And then I started doing the podcast, and the guy goes, do you have like a saying that you say? And I say, well, I've always said, give me the juicy scoop. What's the juicy scoop? He's like, I love it. So then we called it the juicy scoop. And then at like about a year or 2 into that, I went to my agents. I'm like, I'm not going out on anything anymore. Like, what's happening? And they're just not asking for people like you. Like, it's just not what TV wants. They want, they want diversity, and I'm like, well, now I'm getting kind of old. Do I get like into an old category?
Well, that's a diversity. I mean, you're
it's
the
not,
old.
though. It's not. So I was kind of like, all right, that's fine.
Your podcast is pretty fucking big.
The podcast is everything I need. I don't desire. I mean, when people come to me, I will do it. I love doing it. I love doing 25 words or less. I did 2 other things that haven't come out that I'm excited about. I love it, but they were all just them coming to me, like not me going pitching myself, and that I sort of love. It's like very free because I get so much creative satisfaction about doing the podcast and stand-up that the other stuff is just like gravy.
In terms of numbers and statistics, what's an impressive fact or figure about Juicy Scoop in terms of its rating or rankings in the world of podcasts?
Well, I'm in episodes, I'm always like around top 10 of episodes of comedy episodes.
What does that mean? Top 10 of comedy
of
episodes?
Of all the comedy podcasts.
Right.
And the episodes of that day.
Right.
It's usually the next day. So if it comes out on Tuesday, I'll look on Wednesday. I'm like in the top 10. And it'll be like Conan and, like Joe Rogan and
that's massive.
And in that, I'm there, and the only women that are ahead of me are the 2 Office ladies that talk about the Office show.
That's pretty fucking cool.
So, I mean, that's pretty great. And then in all the episodes of all the billions of podcasts in the world, my episode will land like 50, which is very impressive.
In the world?
In the world. And like 6 of those.
Who's number 1 in the world?
Joe Rogan.
Give me your Jennifer Aniston impersonation.
Oh, Josh, this is gorgeous. I've got the fire. I feel great. I am just looking forward to just getting this vaccine and seeing my friends like you and hugging and just enjoying my Aveeno skincare. It just gives me moisture, and I've got a smart water, and I've got my dogs, and Brad's been coming around, and I'm like, oh, God, did you fuck up? I am good. I am great.
With that said, folks, it's been real.
And fun.
It's been fun. It's been juicy, and Sonia Morgan is still upstairs and is not planning to leave in the foreseeable future. Bye.
Lovely.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.